guess this would be another situation if you were to 3-bet actually. I'm going to c-bet against Little Bob's, but I do think that he's going to be folding here a little bit less than like your average opponent, just because he's not flatting a whole lot, and I would expect it to just be like maybe pairs and then like Jack 10, 8, 9 suited, and maybe some Ace-X suited. It's just kind of like the top range of like what would be a normal flatting range for people. Here, I'm pretty much hoping to get called by Ace High or 4X. I don't. It kind of sucks because when I check back the flop, this is not going to kind of be the guy that leads a whole lot of turns. So maybe against him, maybe c-betting is a little bit better. But that's at the same time, maybe he doesn't peel the flop for 2 streets with like 2s, but he might check call that turn and river with 4. I think that's kind of tough decision to make, really. Tough to really, or not really, I get a decision, just tough to really figure out exactly what he's doing, what he's thinking. So here we go with Ace 8. Like I was saying before, I don't expect him to run 3-barrel bluffs. I expect like his barreling range to maybe have some draws, like maybe like a hand like 6-7 is in that range, but I don't expect like just pure air to be barreling away here, unfortunately. This could get interesting figuring bets. I mean, I'm just pretty much going to assume that he can value bet like Ace Queen, Ace Jack, Ace 10, and just go ahead and call here on the river. But like I was saying, I think he probably barrels like hearts on the turn and maybe a few gut shots. So I'm not really sure. But yeah, I got a call here, and 5-7 diamonds, and interesting. And I think that you see these kinds of nitty players kind of show up with hands like that. He says great river, but I mean, he may be right about that. If he understands his image correctly, then maybe I would be folding on the river. He probably could have bet a little bit bigger on the river to make me fold, but I'm not, I'm not convinced that he's actually on the level where he's thinking, okay, this guy's going to be folding all the time in this spot, and that would, and that's maybe, okay, hold on for a second here. He definitely is capable of showing up with a 2. First of all, it's just, is there going to be a hand that, does he ever have 9x and call here is kind of the question, or am I only just raising to get called by 2x? It's possible he can just put me on complete crap and call with a 9, but I think more likely he's just only going to call with a 2 and like a king, and that's really it. But hopefully we'll figure out a little bit about his hand reading and how he thinks here. And he had, he had King 10 in this spot, and immediately 4-bets here on the left. I actually misclicked 3-bet, didn't realize. But from that situation, I mean, you can kind of realize that he knows that I'm in that spot. I'm all nuts or air, and he says I'm so good. I'm not sure why he's talking crap, but yeah, in that spot, I mean, I don't really understand his call, because when I check back and check down, I pretty much have like 9x or 10s or 8x. I don't really show up with a whole lot of air. I'm betting a lot of my air on the flop, and if I didn't bet the flop, I'm more likely going to be betting it on the turn. So when I get to the river, I've got a 2 or an 8 or a 9, and I'm raising the river with all my 2s and probably calling or folding with my 9s. Not really going to be turning those into a bluff all that often. So I don't really like his play there. I think that it just shows that he kind of is sporadic in the way that he thinks. He realizes that I expect his range to be fairly weak when he leads. He could maybe have some 2x, but for the most part, it's like 9x and 8x. He realizes that I think his range is weak, but he doesn't all at the same time. He doesn't have the ability to figure out what hands I could actually be bluffing with, and that's something to keep in mind about his hand reading skills. He's able to, or he's possibly going to be paying more attention to the strength of his hands and whether or not I think he'll be folding to a raise, rather than what I'm repping or what I could actually be bluffing with. And here, I'm just going to check down. I think that he has a 7 there, and I'm not really sure. I don't really want to be bluffing a whole lot against him. It seems like maybe he's a little stationy, or maybe he's a little bit frustrated. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's one piece of information to realize against opponents quite often, is that they don't consider what hand could you actually be bluffing with. I'm sorry Little Bob's sat out here. Hopefully he's coming back. If he doesn't sit back in, I'll definitely be finding another opponent real quickly. But I'm going to note on this guy that really not unsure how to exactly to word it, but basically he's not thinking about what hands I could actually be bluffing with. And I think it's kind of an odd read, but it's one that 2-4, 3-6, higher level regs, the better regs that you play, they're going to be much more likely to consider this sort of thing. Here, I'm going to be 5-betting small, and he did 4-bet a little bit bigger here, and I'm hoping that it means that he has like an actual hand. 80, 95 will work. I mean, I'm just hoping to induce like a jam from like, hopefully, well, ideally like 5-6 suited, but ace 10 suited or something like that that's randomly decided to 4-bet, or just there's obviously worse hands that could be jamming here, and well, that's just a massive cooler. No queen. I got to say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this play at all, and I certainly could be 5-bet bluffing that size. So just unlucky for him in that spot. Hopefully he'll tilt off a little bit here, and we'll see. Maybe I can get 2 tables now. But yeah, I just want to go back to the idea, there's things like, and I remember when I was coaching Ziddle, when he was originally coming up through like 1-2 and through the lower stakes, even 50-cent dollar, 50-cent. One of the things that I really, I guess, clicked for him was the idea of, if somebody doesn't value bet thinly, that they can't ever really be or that they are always bluffing, in these spots where, they're not able to value bet thinly. They can have a wide value range, and to me, this is like one of those sort of ideas. Like, if somebody, it's on a more advanced level, but the players that don't think about what you could actually be bluffing with, they're only concerned with he's thinking about, my opponent thinks he can make me fold here, so I should be calling, essentially, and not like all of the, and it's definitely true, and there's merit to his spot, and he was close to the top of his range, which possibly he's thinking that his hand's pretty under-repped, but again, I'm not going to be turning hands into bluffs there. If I am bluffing, it's with an 8 and or 4s or 5s, and I think he needs to have more reads to make that assumption and make that play. Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot I can do here. That's kind of a good board for him just to lead and barrel off. I'm not going to show up with a whole lot of hearts, but there's not anything I can really do about it other than just fold. In some spots, his range is just so far ahead of mine that there's nothing I can do. Real quick, I'm trying to find another 1-2 table that this guy's at. Hopefully he's frustrated enough to open up a second table, since the other guy is apparently on tournament break. More likely just doesn't really want to play. Dusselbauer does seem to be playing back a little bit more, not necessarily 3-betting, but just flatting more, but I don't think he's doing enough for me to really worry about it. He's still folding to steal enough. Here we go, I found the table he's on. Yeah, he's still folding to steal, let's see, 66%, and I don't want to get too out of line anyway. I've got momentum, and so I want to kind of force him to make hands or put me in bad situations, unfortunate situations, for him to get away from the downward momentum, I guess. Hopefully he wants to play 2 now. Kind of unlikely, but it's worth a shot. He checks back here. We haven't seen him check back a whole lot. The one time we did, we saw air. Of course, people can check back Queen X or even like weak X's in this sort of spot, and then just call or call down or call 1, fold the river or whatever. But I do want to lead my 9 high and see if I can take it away from him. And he does show up with Queen X, and pretty standard taken line there by him. He probably could actually bet the river, since I'm very likely to be betting like King Queen or Queen Jack or Queen 10 or any better queen, or any better hand, essentially. So I think that checking back in the river is mildly weak. But and then for that reason, like I said before, this is going to be the kind of player and where if he can't value bet thinly, then when he's betting rivers, he's going to be showing up with bluffs a little bit more often than other players, just because of the fact that he can't have as wide of a value range.